Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out the range to talk about low power variable optics, LPVOs. That's what I have on this SIG Spear in 762x39. This optic is very popular right now, but they present a bit of a problem for some folks, for some shooters. Now, what's really cool about the LPVO is the fact that you can go all the way down to 1 power, or you can turn a ring and take it up to 6, 8, 10 power, depending on which optic you have. But the problem comes when you're on your target and you're aiming and you want to change your magnification. You have to either take your support hand, break it, turn it, come back and start shooting, or use your firing hand to make adjustments. Now this one does have a little thing here that makes it a little bit easier to make those adjustments. Many times it's just the ring itself without this additional lever. Either way, you're still having to break that grip, make adjustments, the gun moves around, come back, reacquire your target and start shooting. I love the fact that you can go all the way down to 1 power with optics like this, turn on the electric reticle and it'll turn red or green or whichever color you've chosen. So you can use it with both eyes open like a red dot sight. And then if you need to get a more or a better view of the target area or target, you can crank that magnification up and now you can see more clearly what it is that you're aiming at. But again, the only downside being the fact that you have to kind of break your grip on the weapon, kind of move the gun around as you make adjustments, then reacquire that target. So there has to be a better solution, right? Well, there is a solution out there. It's from a company called Antimatter, and that is a company that's related to the Flux Defense team. This is another company they've started up, and Antimatter creates the ScopeSwitch. Now, I know you guys have probably heard about this. If not, stick around. It's really interesting. I've put one on my SIG Spear, the 308 version, and I want to show it to you guys because this is really interesting. Now, small companies are very nimble. They can make, investments in new technology and new ideas and very quickly bring them to market, where larger companies sometimes take a little while to innovate, if they innovate at all. Look at Glock. They haven't really done much in 30 years except make the same gun over and over again. So these smaller companies like Antimatter are capable of coming up with some of these new ideas, and they'll evolve over time. So this is a first generation design, if you will, and we're going to take a closer look at it because I think you're going to find it quite interesting. I certainly do. American Hartford Gold is dedicated to helping individuals and families invest in precious metals. This includes gold, silver, platinum, in both bars and coins. They provide both physical delivery to one's doorstep or inside of a retirement account like an IRA, 401k, or TSP. American Hartford Gold helps clients achieve greater security for their future by adding a safe haven asset to their portfolio. Investors receive only the highest quality gold and silver coins offered at competitive prices with 100% customer satisfaction guaranteed. American Hartford Gold has an excellent Trustpilot rating from over 1,000 customers. They're A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau. They have a price match guarantee, a buyback commitment, and free maintenance and storage for up to 3 years. American Hartford Gold has a special offer for Military Arms Channel viewers of up to $5,000 in free silver on qualified orders. So please call 866-406-1988 today or text military to 65532. Again, that is 866-406-1988 or text military to 65532. So please swing by and check out American Hartford Gold. I will put a link in the video description below. So this is it, folks, the ScopeSwitch. What you see right here, the mount, the covers here, the slider, this little rail here for RMR, red dot sight up here. All this stuff minus the optic is part of the package that you will get if you purchase a ScopeSwitch. So what does it do? Well, you'll notice back here, we have some cabling, and around the adjustment ring, there is this little contraption that helps guide these wires. And the wires run through a series of pulleys down here and connect to the slider. So when I move this slider with my thumb, see how it's making adjustments to the magnification of the optic? So when I'm on target, and I want to zoom in, I can just draw my hand back and I've zoomed in and I've not disrupted my sight picture or the weapon in my shoulder whatsoever. So it allows me to quickly go from close engagements at low power to crank that up and engage at distance without having, again, to remove my hands from the weapon to make those adjustments. We'll talk about the concept and what I think of it. We'll talk a little bit about the installation process. I'm not going to give you an install video. There's plenty of videos out there to show you how to install it, but we'll talk about the process and all that good stuff in today's video. So let's do a little bit of shooting with the ScopeSwitch. Really cool, different, but it seems to be quite intuitive. Let's take a closer look. So the ScopeSwitch, check this thing out. All right, get my Federal ammunition over here, love those guys. All right, so the ScopeSwitch is a fairly simple device to install if you're mechanically inclined. What's really cool about the packaging is there's a QR code in the box, and you can scan that QR code. It'll take you to a website that will give you extremely detailed installation videos that will even show you how to troubleshoot an installation if you're having problems. They're so committed to helping you that if you have a problem with the install, you can ship your firearm to them and they'll actually install it for you if you're encountering problems or something doesn't seem to be working correctly for you. But I think most people are going to get through the tutorial videos and successfully install this quite easily. Took about 20 minutes. It's not because it's super difficult. It's just a little bit time consuming because you got to make adjustments, move things around. You're working with cables and things like that, adjusting tension and all that. There's extremely good detailed instructions on what to do if your adjustment goes clockwise or counterclockwise, all that stuff. So I have to give kudos to them for the fact that they did such a good job in explaining how to install this device on your particular rifle. So how does it work? It's actually pretty simple in concept. So you have several different pieces here. First of all, this piece is in two pieces. This is where your slider is. And there's a cable, I should say, running through this device in a series of little pulleys inside of here. And this will clamp to your 1913 rail on top. Then you have some covers back here because otherwise this would just be exposed with the cable running through here within your field of view. So this covers up the cables and protects them. The cables move underneath the scope mount and pop up right back here. You can see the little pulleys and how those cables then come up to an adapter that's been placed on the LPVO, and then you run the cabling around and you can see that you bring the cabling through these clamps and then you trim the cables to length. And you left a little bit extra length on there, but that gives you an idea of how the system works. So when you move the slider, basically all it's doing is pulling a cable one way or the other, which then translates into making adjustments to the magnification ring on the LPVO. Again, all this, the mount, screws, all this stuff comes in the box with the ScopeSwitch. And so this is the box that it would come in. Some of my original parts are still in here. So this is my original scope mount that was on the rifle. These are the little rings that go around of various sizes that go around your LPVO. So there's different pieces and bits and stuff like that in here that will work with whatever scope you're working with. If you need additional components, if you need additional covers or additional rings like this, you can just contact Antimatter and they'll send them to you. And so this is just the standard. I went with the optional mount for a red dot sight, but this is the standard scope mount up here, so you can go either or. I probably wind up putting a red dot sight up there just because I can. But again, it's very nicely packaged, great instructions, and this whole kit, there's two different options right now as of this recording. There's a flat dark earth, or tanitization as they call it, I believe on their website. You have a flat dark earth or tan version, then you have the black version. The tan version costs a little bit more, but both of them are just under $400 in cost. So with this black unit, I think it was $386 or $89. So that's what it's going to cost you to purchase that. And again, it does not include an optic. It's just going to come with the hardware to mount the optic to your existing rifle. Now you will notice that this sits a little bit higher than, say, the optics mount that I took off. It sits a little bit higher. I like this. I like it being up a little bit, especially if you have a helmet on or something like that. Being elevated a bit makes it a little bit easier to get a good chink weld. Who would have known that the Russians back in the 80s and 90s, when everybody's making fun of their optics sitting really high on their firearms, were actually right? Because take a look at the Unity mounts and things like that these days. More and more people are starting to move those optics a little bit higher because of all the kit and stuff that they wear. It makes it much easier, I should say, getting on target rapidly and controlling the weapon. So there's nothing wrong with things being a little bit higher. And there's been plenty of tests out there on the internet that show that moving your optic up a little bit isn't going to change the point of impact and point of aim and all that stuff as much as people might think it would. So very, very cool system. Now it's going to add, I'm not sure what the weight is. I have to look it up on the website, but it's going to add some weight to the gun. Obviously, you're adding some additional components out here. Now these covers, these are polymer. This is all aluminum. Of course, the mount is all aluminum. So this is already a fairly heavy rifle. This is the Sig Spear in 308, but it doesn't really change the balance of the gun much. And I really do like it on here I think it works really, really nicely. Now, keep in mind the SIG optics, they tend to have a more frictional resistance on their magnification rings. And so sometimes you have to really crank on them. But look at the ease with which I'm able to move this slider. So even though it's a little bit more firm than some other optics out there, it's still working very, very smoothly. Now, the only question that people might have, and it's a valid question, especially if you're talking about, you know, military type applications, law enforcement type applications, you'll notice that there's some openings here, right? And as I've already mentioned, there's a series of little pulleys in here and a cable. So how much would the ingress of dirt and sand in this mechanism cause problems with it? I really don't know. Maybe if you guys are curious, we'll do some dirt and mud and stuff testing on this to see how much it can actually take. But keep in mind, once you get stuff packed in there, you can take the entire thing apart to clean it. But will that impede its function? I honestly don't know. But again, if you guys are curious to find out, comment down below and we'll make that video where we kind of torture test this thing. I'm primarily interested in it with regards to this particular video, just talking about the functionality of it and how practical it is. Now, with that being said, I like it. Now, I've not shot it extensively. We just started playing with it, just started evaluating it, but it certainly seems to offer an interesting solution to a problem I've often found with LPVOs, and one of the reasons why I've been apprehensive to use them a lot on my defensive rifles. You'll generally see me using red dot sights because I can effectively engage targets at practical distances 200, 300, 400 meters with a simple red dot sight. I don't need an LPVO, but where LPVOs come into their own is in their ability to more clearly see what's going on downrange at 200 or 300 yards. So if you're working in law enforcement, military, or even a civilian that's in a militia team or just interested in self-defense, being able to see your target more clearly is a good thing, right? Being able to identify threats and being able to address threats is something that is definitely beneficial. So that to that aspect of the LPVOs, I've liked it. What I've not liked over the years is having to break my grip and make those adjustments to the ring. And there's some other solutions out there like clip-on magnifiers, 3x, 5x magnifiers that sit behind red dot sights, but they can be a bit clunky, heavy, and awkward. The newer mounts that fold down are better than the ones that used to fold to the side, in my opinion. But still, that's less than ideal, and many times it'll actually weigh more and be more cumbersome than a simple LPVO like this. So overall, I think the quality of the manufacturing is definitely top-notch. I've found no flaws with regards to the quality of the materials. Everything seems to be you know, really well made. The pulley system works very, very well. You don't feel any unnecessary resistance. Parts aren't rubbing against each other. So in that regard, the system seems to work very, very well. So depending on how much real estate you have out here, the scope switch may or may not interfere with the other accessories you have on your firearm. Now originally, if you go back in my earlier videos, you'll notice that my Surefire light was hanging off the other side of the rifle and I had a pressure switch on top of the rails. I had to move that because of the scope switch. That's not a major problem. I just moved the sight over, or the light, I should say, to the other side of the rifle, and now I can just easily activate it by just pushing the button with my thumb. So it's ergonomically just fine. It'll work just fine for me. So keep that in mind, that you're going to need that rail space out here to accommodate the slider. So shooting it is quite intuitive. I mean, I really think this worked quite well. Now, I have seen some people comment, and it's definitely something to be aware of, that when you're sliding this, so this is a more natural grip for me. When I magnify my viewing area, I have to move my hand back towards the receiver. So my grip goes from here to here. Now, is that a problem? I can always readjust and come back and grab the slider because you have a great index point right here. So your thumb's going to find that pocket really easy. So you can make that adjustment and go back and grab and still not be that disruptive to your rifle, and then move it back, I should say, very easily. So that's just something to be aware of. These are all personal preferences, and some things about this might be an off-put to you or off-putting to you, and other people like myself are going to find that this really isn't a concern. I've just seen other people talk about that. I don't see it as being a problem myself. The cost, $400, not inexpensive. I mean, you can pretty much buy a PSA AR-15 for that amount of money, but I think in terms of the quality, the fitment, ease of use, in my mind, it is a worthwhile investment if you're running an LPVO and you're looking for a different way to make those adjustments to your magnification. If you're one of those people, and there's a lot of you out there that has like a sweet spot that you typically run your optic at, a certain magnification, you're not constantly making adjustments to the thing, you might not need a particular product like this. It might not make sense for you. So overall, I think the quality is good. I like the concept. I like the manual nature of it. I've seen some discussions on the internet that perhaps they're working on a version that has an electric motor versus the mechanical or the manual pulley system. I don't know how that would work, and I'd probably still opt for the manual selection method, simply because I know electric motors tend to fail. It'd have to be a fairly high torque motor to work with an optic like this. And if you're going to put batteries on there to operate that high torque motor, AA might not be enough, and the battery life might not be there. And although you can still go back and manually make adjustments, I don't know. I just kind of like the manual version, but some of you might be looking forward to an electric version. We'll see if that actually materializes. But overall, I think it's really well thought out and a great first generation attempt at making something that makes the LPVO a little bit more useful. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video about the scope switch from Antimatter. If you guys have any questions about this particular setup, feel free to ask those questions down below. I will stick around for the first couple of days after our video goes live to answer any questions you guys may have. You can also pop over to Patreon, where you can ask questions directly to me, and I'll get back to you very quickly. That's our Patreon. There's a link down below. You'll get early access to videos, again, direct access to me. Check out our Patreon. Also, right here on YouTube, you got the little button there underneath the video player you're watching. You can either subscribe to the channel or you can thank the channel monetarily, and that helps support us in the age of demonetization right here on YouTube. Last but not least, please swing by, check out Copper Custom. Thank you for 16 years of support, and we'll talk to you guys soon.